Okay. I won't get into the specifics. We can just talk generally, if you will, because I'm sure you heard about the domestic violence situation that was kind of covered the news. What kind of signs should people be looking for, let's go over both, whether you're in that type of relationship or whether you're family and friends to kind of influence, hey, you got to watch out for this. What are kind of red flags, if you will?
Yeah. I think part of the difficulty with this is there's no checklist. There's no certain set of facts that if you say, if this exists, that is definitely domestic violence. It looks different. It manifests itself in different ways in every relationship. But what we do know, what we do have to work with as people who might have a loved one dealing with this is that it always is rooted in control, power and control over that other person. And the really simple way to put it is it's about how I look to get my partner to do what I want her to do or stop doing what I don't want her to do. And if that seems to be at the core of what is happening, kind of regardless of the variations and how it plays out, then that's what we're talking about is that pattern of control through coercion, fear, manipulation, um, and that's what we're looking for. As a friend or a family member, a coworker, a neighbor, that's what we're looking for as well. Do we see that happening in that relationship?
So, what if people are arguing a lot? Is that an example of where it could lead, or that's just people arguing?
It could be either. Certainly people argue in relationships. People have conflicts in relationships. People say hurtful things in relationships. Part of the issue is that a reactionary thing in the moment, or is that a pattern of one partner looking to use those situations to create a situation of control based on fear or manipulation or coercion? And so arguing because we disagree about something is one thing. Me calling my partner names, trying to degrade her, trying to create fear around her doing things the way I want it done or coming to the answer that I want us to have as a couple, that's where we're talking about domestic violence has taken place.
So, if you have an individual, because I've seen this before, if they hit you once, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again." Is
Mhm.
that a sign that says, "Hey, maybe I got to get out of this"?
Yeah, I think there's something that we refer to as the cycle of abuse, where most relationships involving domestic violence are not bad every minute of every day. There are periods where things are good. And then there's an incident where something happens. And following that, there's often then an apology, flowers, candies, I will never do it again. I'm going to get help. All of those things that are an attempt to get back to things being okay again, without them having to take accountability, and perhaps even blaming the victim for what happened. Um, you made me do that. I told you to stop talking. You wouldn't stop. So then I had to, all of those things that might occur. Um, but it may get back to being okay then for a while. Um, and that is where the victim might say, oh, now I see the person I fell in love with again. I see that person's there. I know they're there, so I'm going to hang on for a while. I'm going to stick around and see if that promise to do better happens. But what'll happen in a typical domestic violence situation is it doesn't get better and often gets worse, and they just go round and round and round in that cycle. But we can see in that why somebody might stay, because it creates hope, that maybe this time really will be the last time.
So, if I'm a friend, what do I say to my friend that I clearly sees it in a domestic
Yeah.
violence
Yeah.
situation? What do I say to them without them hating me, I guess?
Yeah, right. No, that's an important piece is that it can be really scary to step into a conversation with a friend or a family member and you feel like, oh, is this a private thing? Am I stepping across a line here? And what I'd say is it's really important in a private way, not with the abusive partner around, but in a private way to be able to say to that person, hey, I'm worried about what's happening there. I see XYZ. That looks really dangerous. I fear for your safety. None of this is your fault. If they're sharing with you that they're experiencing abuse, letting them know you believe them is a really important piece. Um, and then saying, if and when you are ready to do anything, I am here to support you in doing that. And that's part of the key is that they have to drive the bus. They have to be in charge of their own decisions about their own lives because they will deal with the consequences of their choices, not us as friends or family members. They will. And so they've got to decide based on what they think is going to be safest for them, what those steps are. But if they know they've got someone in their corner, they know there's someone they can turn to for help, that can be the difference between life and death. And so it's important that we take the uncomfortable step of letting that person know, hey, we see this happening and we're worried about you. And we will be here to support whatever decision you make about it.
Unfortunately, you see victims all the time, and you have to deal with this all the time. And sometimes when I'm looking at the initial appearances in court, all I see is DV, DV, DV,
Yeah.
DV, DV.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
How bad is the situation that you're seeing?
Well, at Emerge, we're the only comprehensive domestic violence service provider here in town. We are serving about 6,000 folks every year. And we know that is the tip of the iceberg. Local law enforcement responds to over 15,000 calls to 911 each year for domestic violence alone. It is the number one call generator on 911 for most law enforcement agencies. And we know that's the tip of the iceberg because so much of it is underreported out of fear, out of shame, out of not wanting to call law enforcement for a number of reasons. And so we can start to see here just how devastating this is in our community. And then you add to it that research shows that only about 1 in 10 incidents get reported. So we can take the numbers that we know concretely, multiply that by 10, and we start to see how pervasive this is here in our community.
So for somebody in a situation right now, and they may hear your voice, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that there's help. There's help and there is hope for a safer life. It is not easy. It is not easy to be in a domestic violence situation. It is not easy to leave a domestic violence situation. But the important thing to know is that you don't have to do it alone. That there are certainly, hopefully, friends and family support system around you, but there's certainly Emerge and our willingness to walk that path with you, whatever that journey is going to look like, whatever it means to create safety for you as a particular person, you're going to have folks who are there walking that with you, connecting you to resources, helping you with options, and you don't have to do it alone.
One more thing. When we talk about power, if your partner basically tells you to like basically get rid of all your friends and your family,
Right.
that's got to be like the number one red flag, right?
Isolation is one of the most common tactics used by abusive partners. And that can be geographic isolation, being in a very rural area or moving to a new town where you don't know anybody, or just isolation in the fact that, yeah, I am forcing you through threats or other means to get rid of connections and relationships with family and friends. I might even get you fired from your job so you don't have support from coworkers, anything to create that isolation. And that tactic is so often used because it creates additional dependency on the abusive partner. I don't necessarily have anywhere else to go or anybody who's going to help me leave if that's what I choose to do. But it also means that whatever that abusive partner is telling them, there's nobody else contradicting that. There's nobody telling them that something isn't right or something isn't healthy or something isn't safe or true. It's just one way input without anybody else helping them maybe see a different perspective. And that, again, helps that abusive partner have control over that person.
So where do people go for resources?
Well, we hope folks will feel comfortable reaching out to Emerge. We are here 24/7. They can call our hotline at 795-4266. It is available 24/7, 365, multilingual, and it has trained staff who are there to support emotionally, provide options, resources, do safety planning, and walk the journey alongside of that survivor.
Okay, my final question is this: do you have like numbers that what I mean numbers is like what some of the numbers are in town in Pima County? Do you have access to that?
Numbers meaning like how many?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the only ones that I have are I just know that again Emerge is the only domestic violence service provider here,
Uh-huh.
and we're serving this last year 6,400 people,
Okay.
and then the other big statistic is that 911 number of 15,000 calls for domestic violence every year. Um,
That's it's here?
that's here. That's Pima County, Tucson and Pima County.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So like
So,
I think, Sheriff Nanos was quoted on the news yesterday talking about they have domestic violence calls every day, at least one, maybe two, three, or four. Um, those numbers certainly attest to that. And most of those numbers are obviously the sheriff's department and TPD, but also some of the smaller surrounding areas. But yeah, 15,000 calls every year for domestic violence just
that's
in our community kind of and again knowing that many people aren't calling 911. They don't want law enforcement involvement for a number of reasons. They feel too scared to reach out because their partner will retaliate, um, or the type of abuse that they're experiencing is emotional, mental, verbal, or threats in a way that aren't illegal. And so you can't call the police to help you with it. And so you take those numbers and you realize that is absolutely the tip of the iceberg.
So thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we're going to get some of this information out there for people who may need some help.
We really appreciate that. I know that that's the one thing that we are so thankful. I think local media across the board in Tucson, certainly KVOA, you're covering what is a news event. I know that. But the way that you all look to make sure that there's information so that it's not just this, hey, here's this horrible thing that happened, but also like how do we not have more of these horrible things? I really appreciate that you all approach it from that perspective. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Solutions-based journalism works.
There you go.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Thanks. Do you know what
Bye-bye.
time this will be on?
Probably 5 o'clock.
Okay. Great. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.